Am I the a-hole for not making my wife choose between me and her affair partner? As soon as I found out, I moved out and filed for divorce. Counseling is not on the table. An open relationship is out. I'm not interested in having anything to do with her again. She tried saying that if I ask, she would choose me. Gross. I don't want her. Some of our friends think I should have fought for our marriage, so I offered to sleep with them or their wives to see how they feel about the situation then. No one has taken me up on my kind and Christian offer. I'm paying my half of the lease on the apartment. There are 4 months left. In the meantime, I'm going to work and spending my time off at all-inclusive resorts. It's cheaper than getting an apartment for myself. Am I the a-hole for not trying to save our marriage? Now for the top comments. She tried saying that if I ask, she would choose me. You did ask her at your wedding. Wild of her to say that. Not the a-hole. She didn't stay true to her vows. Why should he stay true to his? Since the marriage vow has already been broken, he is free to divorce her. She said she would choose him, but didn't choose him when she was sleeping with the other guy. What right does she have to choose him now? Even Jesus said you can divorce a cheating spouse. Not a-hole. If she was going to choose you, she shouldn't have had an affair in the first place. I like her response to the friends too. Right, like how could they deny such a kind and Christian offer like that? Lol. At least the friends would know who their partners would be sleeping with. Definitely not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You pleading and begging, please stop cheating on me. Please, please, choose me is emasculatingly humiliating. Not to mention, she already chose this other person. You made a correct move. She would have chosen you to be her doormat as she continued to cheat whenever the heck she felt like it. You can sleep well tonight knowing that you improved your life, and the best is yet to come. You'll eventually meet someone who deserves you. I'm glad to see someone with some damn self-respect. The pick-me game is pathetic. So many of those posts. It makes me sick. Next story. Am I the a-hole for letting my ex-girlfriend have gonorrhea for a year? About 18 months ago, I, 31 male at a time, began dating a woman, Beth, 24 at a time. Beth and I had a lot in common, and we met fairly often. I've always taken my sexual health very seriously, and early in our relationship, I demanded we have full STI panels done. Beth was fully on board with this, and we went and got tested together. We were able to show clean tests to each other, and since Beth was on the pill, our intercourse was all done and protected. About 5 months into our relationship, Beth went on a 3-week vacation in France. She came home talking about how she had had a wonderful time, showing me pictures and stories. On our first night back, having had 3 weeks without sex, we naturally had it a few times. 2 days after that, I had extreme pain during urination and discharge from my member. I honestly had no idea what was going on, so I went to a urologist who immediately told me that I must have a bacterial infection. He asked if I had been exposed to any STIs, to which I responded no, I hadn't. He then said for precautionary measures, he'd give me preemptive treatment for bacterial STIs while waiting for my lab results. A few days later, my lab results came back. By the time, my symptoms had entirely disappeared. I went to the doctor's office, and he explained that I had gonorrhea. I was stunned, because Beth was my only partner, which meant one thing. She had cheated on me, probably in Europe. At this point, I ghosted Beth. Blocked her on social media, phone number blocked. I assumed she tried to reach out in some way, but she never came to my house to see me. I figured that was the end of it, and lived my life as normal for the next year. Well, yesterday I got a visit at my front door. It was Beth. She broke down, telling me that she had exposed me to an STI, and that if I hadn't already, I should get tested. I explained that I already knew, and that's kind of why I ghosted her. Beth was stunned for a second, and then shrieked at me, "Why the hell didn't you tell me?" Apparently, having gonorrhea for a year wreaked havoc on her reproductive system, and she may be completely infertile now. She always wanted to have children. I'm conflicted now about if what I did was a-hole-ish. At a time, I was so depressed that I just couldn't bring myself to talk to her about it. You know, normally F around and find out isn't quite so literal. My ex found someone and banged some random dude off Tinder a week after she broke up with me. Called me, asked if I gave her chlamydia, told her no, got tested anyway and sent the results. It was negative. And she had the nerve to blame me, that it was my fault she went out and raw dogged some guy from Tinder. She also effed around and found out quite literally. If it were me, I would have communicated a diagnosis and then ghosted. However, I don't care how any of you spin it. OP cannot be blamed for the actions of the ex. Asymptomatic or not, sexually active adults should be tested regularly. It's been a year, so that means neither her nor any of her other partners have been tested in that time. Not to mention, she chose to sleep with a stranger unprotected and didn't get tested and exposed him to the STD in the first place. It's likely not the first time she's done it either. We just went through a freaking pandemic, and no one learned a damn thing about protecting each other and caring for the public at large. Humanity's cooked. She knew she had unprotected sex and was completely irresponsible by putting your health at risk. She cheated and then infected you with some other guy's gonorrhea. How vile is that? If she was so concerned about her reproductive health, then she should have been getting tested regularly. How many other guys did she infect after you, I wonder? This is a majorly harsh life lesson for her, if she truly is infertile now. But she did this to herself, not the a-hole. Exactly this. But I have to add, if she was so concerned about her reproductive health, she would have used protection when sleeping with random people in Europe. But I like to believe that some things happen for a reason, like breaking up a relationship between a cheater and a good responsible man. Glad OP took his symptoms seriously and got it treated. Next story. Am I the a-hole for accidentally raising my voice at my wife and throwing away her dishes and clothes because she won't wash them, just buy new ones? I, 28 male, have been married to my wife, female 30, for 2 years now, together for 5. We were going to start trying for a baby, but that got put on hold and might not happen anymore. My wife and I both work, and we make about the same amount and work about the same amount of hours. My wife and I originally had a chore system set up, where we just rock, paper, scissor the calendar for our days off. We got a pretty fair cut, I want to say, but she did get more dishes days. I got more, if not all, the laundry. My wife hates washing dishes. She hates it with such a passion that she sometimes just shuts down and cries when she sees them in the sink. Before, when I caught her crying, I immediately went to help her, switch chores for the day, calm her down, and then it was fine. But because I was doing this, I noticed that she was crying on purpose, so I washed the dishes. I knew she was faking it, because the second I took over, her tears stopped, and she'd go do something fun that she liked without a care in the world, laughing and smiling. No wind down like before. Because of this, we changed our dishes to whoever makes the dish washes it, like children with the exception of cooking. Whoever cooked doesn't have to wash the pots and pans because they put all the work in for dinner. This was also her suggestion, which I was more than okay with. This was working out for a little while, until I noticed that my wife made a lot more dishes than me and just didn't want to wash them. I asked her when she planned on washing dishes after I made dinner at her request, and she blew up on me, telling me to quite literally F off. I did as she said, but left the dishes. The next day, she asked me why the dishes weren't done, and I told her because she didn't do them. This started a fight, and I washed them, but I wasn't happy. I do most if not all of the laundry because she just won't anymore, and I refuse to wear dirty clothes. The only thing she has to do with the laundry is put it in the basket. That's it. We have a basket for darks, colors, and whites. She insists on her own basket for underwear and whatnot, so that's its own thing and I hand wash it. She's been not putting her clothes in the basket. At first, I picked up all of her clothes and washed them because it was no big deal. But when I watched her take her clothes off and just leave them on the floor because I always pick it up, I chose to leave her clothes there. She asked me why her clothes weren't done. I said because she didn't put them away and she blew up on me. Same story. Recently, this all came to a head with all the fighting. My wife has been getting lazier and lazier to push back because of our fights. And at first, I was doing all of her chores on top of working. But I had a little moment of, why am I even doing this? And just stopped. The dishes piled, her clothes were dirty, crumbs were everywhere on her days. On my days, everything was spick and span. She decided that she's going to just start buying more dishes and clothes to combat not doing her part. I cannot tell you how frustrated this made me. She was buying plastic spoons and forks, paper plates, Walmart t-shirts, and whatever other cheap alternative to the nice ones she has at home. I just decided to start tossing them. When she noticed that I was tossing her cheap alternatives, she blew up at me again. And for the first time since we've been together, I raised my voice. My voice is deep and I'm a big man, so this scared her, which I regretted. I immediately lowered my tone and told her that she just isn't doing her part and that she's wasting money buying useless things when all she has to do is just clean up after herself and put clothes in a basket. She cried, and despite how many times I apologized, she told me that she doesn't feel safe with me and that maybe we're better off divorcing. This shattered me. She's been cold toward me, sleeping on the couch and playing domestic violence signs videos out loud. It's such a low blow. The videos usually talk about yelling, throwing away items, control, emotional abuse, and signs that they're going to get physical. I don't think I'm wrong for what I did, but this is really wearing me down, and I've been getting some texts here and there from our families calling me an a-hole, an abuser for throwing away her things and yelling at her, and that she needs to divorce me. The yelling was an accident. No one has wanted to hear what fully happened, and it's making me feel alone and a bit crazy. My friends are either staying out of it or are on her side if they're women. I've been losing friends. I feel like an a-hole now. Am I the a-hole? All I wanted was for her to clean up after herself. I'd never hurt her and I've never yelled at her before, which I do regret. I didn't mean to scare her. I was just beyond frustrated because this has been building for months. I get that it was probably immature to throw away the disposables and that I should have just cleaned up after her, but I was just frustrated. Now for the top comments. It's not too soon to admit that she's not the best partner for you. If what you write is completely accurate, then it's you who is in an abusive relationship and should exit. Opie didn't ask for this advice, but I think he needs it. Please, please do not get this woman pregnant. Get out and buy what you need and use them to make sure this doesn't happen. Do not rely on her to manage birth control. Stop having sex with this woman immediately. Move out and move on. I'm honestly a little frustrated with the OP that he doesn't done this already. Crazy train. This, OP, if you think she will ever get up from a sound sleep at 2 a.m. with a baby cries, you are sorely mistaken. You and you alone will have sleepless nights for the next 1 to 3 years plus. If you get her pregnant, run while you can. Lord, just divorce her. She sounds like a 12-year-old. Now she's playing domestic violence victim because you yelled once? Get out of there and find an adult to share your life with. Seriously, she seems manipulative, unstable, dishonest, and just gross. I do not understand why OP would stay, not a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for letting my ex's mom into my book club and making his fiancé feel dumb? I, 28 female, dated Jim, 29 male, fake name, when I was 24. We separated when I was 25, and I haven't talked to him much after that. But I still sometimes speak to his parents, especially his mom, whom I have even introduced my father-in-law to as they both love gardening. Now, I've been running a small book club for my uni days with just a couple of lovely women, and we gather in my home library and talk about books in witchy or historical fiction. We also talk about gardening and old folk tales, and I just consider it a very fulfilling hobby. Jim's mom, let's call her Amy, asked me last month if she could join my book club, as my father-in-law had mentioned it to her when they were chatting at the nursery. She thought it sounded great, and I said yes, and I didn't think Jim would mind. Also, it wasn't his business. Amy then joined one session and gushed about it to her husband, who mentioned it to Jim. Now, the problem started there. I later learned that Jim's parents are not fond of his fiancée Beatrice, 30 female. Jim's dad thinks Beatrice has nothing in common with her family. The three of them are huge readers, and thinks that Beatrice is shallow, as she works with makeup and clothes. She's a boutique buyer. Plus, the reason I interacted less with Jim and his parents following our breakup is that Jim dumped me for Beatrice. And even though I'm married and they are somewhat friends with my father-in-law, Jim's parents think Beatrice is not right for their intellectual son. Apparently, at some family dinner, Jim's parents kept on speaking over Beatrice and mentioning how well I had been doing. And Amy had been talking about what books the book club had recommended. And I guess Jim's dad had made a comment on how he wished he had a daughter to talk about books to, and that had hurt Beatrice. Jim later called me and told me about all of this, and that me letting his mom in my club has only given his parents more ammo to hurt Beatrice. I apologized, as I knew none of this. I later asked Amy to not talk about anything book club related outside. I made up a lie about how we pretended to be a coven and can't discuss these things with the outside world, even though it felt awkward and childish. I thought that would be it. Except, Beatrice and one of her friends have made scathing posts on Facebook and Instagram, and even tagged my father-in-law in one of them, and how snobbish and mean-minded bookish women try to take other women's men because they can only read and act smart. Jim then again called me and said that Jim's mom had started a huge fight over it, and she had taken back the jewelry she had given to Beatrice for the wedding. I was a bit shocked, as I rarely spoke to Jim after our breakup, and only interacted with his parents when I ran into them as we live in a small town. But he sounded and acted like I was the reason his family was going through a spat. My husband and father-in-law are saying that Beatrice was lucky that I didn't think of retaliating, and that I was not in the wrong. But I am starting to feel guilty, and I need a second opinion. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Many people are asking, so yes, Jim did sort of cheat on me with Beatrice. He admitted to having an emotional affair with Beatrice and dumped me. I later heard that his parents did not take it well. Not a-hole. Jim's parents have been a-holes and Beatrice's reaction is pathetic, but none of this is because of you. Just stay completely out of it and tell Jim to deal with his parents in a relationship without involving you. This comment right here. Be a man and deal with your situation, but calling me to complain isn't going to change anything. Not a-hole. Stay out of their drama. Not your circus, not your monkeys. You can be friends with his mother. It sounds like she enjoys you and your book club. Jim is projecting his issues with Beatrice onto you. It has nothing to do with you. She made an immature attack-filled post against his own mother's interests, tagged her future father-in-law, and created her own drama. Her actions caused mother-in-law to take her jewelry back, and good for her. Why give jewelry and your blessing to a petty witch who likes to manufacture drama and force people into it? I would block Jim. He can have his prize Beatrice, and you can continue to have a relationship with his mom who values and appreciates you. Yeah, she could have gushed about you less to spare Beatrice, but Beatrice's behavior caused this whole situation. And Jim defending her and blaming you shows they're meant for each other. Perpetual victims shifting blame to others, instead of owning their own feelings and behaviors. I would consider that relationship lucky. You got the best part of it, mother-in-law's friendship. Not a-hole, block Jim. Let Beatrice alienate herself from her future in-laws with her own actions. Seems she wants the drama, posting her rants publicly and tagging people. Ridiculous.